Hello and welcome to another episode of Moose's Gear Goo Review. I'm Moose, and today we have another knife review. Ah, and this is an automatic. This is the Smith & Wesson Extreme Ops Drop Point Automatic Knife. Some stats on this bad boy. I'll tell you right now, after owning this, I have learned that there are certain knives you shouldn't. Well, first off, you shouldn't drop any knife. Second off, there are definitely some knives you shouldn't drop compared to other knives, and I'll get into that discussion in a sec. But let's go over the specs. So the overall length of this knife is 7.75 inches. The blade length is just under 3.25 inches. The handle length is 4.5 inches. The overall weight is 4 ounces. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's a drop point. It's a budget automatic. This is the first automatic I've personally owned, mostly because I just don't like automatics. I like to always be in control of my blade. Now, yes, that being said, an assisted opening is similar to an automatic, but for whatever reason, I don't know. They are cool though. For those of you who love to carry automatics, they're definitely a cool tool. The mechanics behind them are really neat. So teach their own. But that being said, I thought I'd give it a shot. Now, I got this knife off of Blade HQ. They were, it was the cheapest, decent looking automatic that I've ever seen. So I decided to pull the trigger, and I figured if I do pull it, I don't like it or whatever, I'm only out, a quarter of $100. So they were selling them on Blade HQ for $25. So I pulled the trigger. That being said, going over the blade shape, we have a drop point blade. There is a stylized swedge up top. It is a hollow ground knife, and you see some jimping there. It is black coated. Whatever the coating is, it seems. Oh, my bad. We'll talk about that in a sec. It is kind of a sharpened spine, so it might be able to throw sparks. There is some jimping there and a small choil to help sharpen. And yeah, not much insignia. Otherwise, it has the model number there, SW50B, I believe is what it is. So it is a flow-through construction. The handle scales are aluminum. So you think it would be heavier than it is, but it's aluminum, which is nice. It makes it lighter. It has a one-way pocket clip, so it's tip down only, right hand carry only. All the hardware is silver. The push button for the plunge lock is silver. And yeah, so now as you can see, this little guy fell off, and we have this void here, this little slot opening. Well, that was my one disappointment and my realization as to why some knives shouldn't be dropped. So right as I was about to make this review, I dropped it off this counter here and onto the floor, and it's only a matter of about 2.5 to 3 feet. The knife was open when I dropped it, and it landed flat like this. Okay, that's why there's really no damage to the blade. Oh yeah, by the way, the blade steel is $440, so it's definitely a cheaper budget steel. And all of a sudden this popped off. Well, actually, I didn't even see it popped off. I picked it up and I shook it, and I heard a rattle. And this piece here, which is the slide plate to prevent the plunge lock from disengaging, or prevent the actual knife from engaging, was stuck in there, kind of shaking around, and I was like, oh crap. So this piece here was the manual lock. You would slide it forward to lock, and you'd slide it back to unlock, which would then let the knife fire. But it broke, just straight up broke, which kind of sucks. But you know, I guess that shows you the quality of the $25 Smith & Wesson knife. The other thing, but by no means does it make the knife unusable. It just takes away one possible safety feature for those of you who might be, you know, nervous about owning an automatic. There are many automatics out there, like the Kershaw launch line, that don't have safety locks. You know, it's still usable, still a usable knife, and I'm sure I could fix that later. The only other thing that I didn't like about it when I first got it was that the knife overall was loose. There was a lot of play, and there still is some, but it's much better. But basically all I had to do was tighten down all the screws that I saw, specifically the pivot, and the action and the overall feel of the knife got much better. Now, disregarding the broken safety lock, the knife functions just fine as an automatic knife. Push button deployment, push button lock to unlock it, and then to close it. It has a good ergonomic feel. The jimping is effective enough. You know, it's not the most impressive knife, but you know, it works. And for a budget automatic, that's not bad. When you look online and you look at the different automatics out there, generally, I mean, OTFs, those, you know, technically are an automatic, and those are usually start at like $200. Even the launch line that Kershaw has, which are very attractive knives, those are, you know, minimum of $100. So to find one like this, I guess the only other budget automatic that is good quality and has a fairly good fan following is the Boker Kalishnikov, and that's an excellent automatic for the price. That being said, I'd say this is just a step down from that. Obviously the lock broke, but you know, as is for aluminum handle scales and a push button automatic, definitely worth $25 in my mind. So unfortunately, I don't own any other automatics, so I'm going to compare it to some of the spring-assisted knives that I do have. The Kershaw Camber, Kershaw Blur Tonto. We'll throw in a mini Griptilian. This is the 556, which is sweet. I love it. And then we'll just throw in Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Just for the heck of it. So line those up. Overall blade length, you can see that the Blur and the Paramilitary are the longest blades, but it's definitely that 3.25 inches. Handle length, the mini grip is small. Looks like it has a slightly larger handle than the Kershaw Camber. And then, of course, it actually matches up fairly well with the Blur. And then, of course, the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 is the longest. Looking at blade thickness, looks about equal to the Camber. The Camber might be a hair thicker. You know, this is a cheaper knife, so I don't expect it to be thicker than anything. About the same as the Blur. Definitely, it might even be thicker than the mini grip here, so that might be a win. And then the PM2 definitely wins out on that. That being said, the last test I have for this knife is the ugly brown glove test. Now, because it's anodized, or it's aluminum and painted aluminum, it is very slick, especially with the cloth glove. Yeah, super slick. I don't have much grip at all. Even these stylized millings here don't do much. So push button doesn't have any grip. It's satin polished, so I can find it though because it does protrude out fairly well, so it is easy to find. Boom. The jimping is effective. It does lock my hand in there, which is nice for these cloth gloves. But once again, like I said, it's slick. The choil kind of helps hold my finger, and it is, you know, usable. So, pretty sharp. So there's that. And then to close it, you know, it's a two-hand close there. I think I cut my finger. So it is easy to close and open with the push button. But the grip overall is, you know, concerns me a little. I feel like you should have better grip on your knife at all times, regardless of what you're wearing in your hand. So that being said, would I say it passes for opening and closing? Yes, it does. For overall grip, no. So I'll give it a 60% on the ugly brown glove test. It does not fail by any means, but it definitely, I mean, in some cases, 60% is failing. So there you go. That being said, this is the Smith & Wesson, I forgot what it was called. The Smith & Wesson Extreme Ops drop point knife, and I guess it says Extreme Ops there. So if you want to get into automatic knives, definitely check this one out. It is a easy, good starter knife. Like I said, automatics, don't drop them. That's the thing I learned. I probably would say the same for any spring-assisted knives as well. The more mechanisms you have within the knife, the more likelihood that a small piece or part of it could break or dislodge if dropped. Versus, you know, a manual folder, all you have is that pivot pin. The likelihood that anything breaking on it will be far less. And then, of course, if you have a fixed blade, it's way less likely that anything is going to break. So if we had to put in a scale as far as what type of knife you don't want to drop, going from one side to the other, cheap automatic knives you don't want to drop. Well-made assisted spring opening knives you don't really want to drop. You know, manual folders, they're okay to, you know, you don't want to drop any of these knives, but it'd be better off dropping this than this. And of course, fixed blades, they're all one piece. They'll be the most durable in a drop test. So there you go. That's my little service announcement on knives. If you're a clumsy person, you might want one of these. Or one of these, but make sure you have the sheath on. That being said, check out the eye in the upper right hand corner. Like, subscribe, comment. If you've had any similar situations when you drop a knife, or any experience with cheap budget folders or even automatics, let me know. Subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys outside. Thank you.